Ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else, welcome in once again to week 14 of the Casual Sports Podcast, live on YSNLive.com. As always, I'm Alek, Koberna, that's Matt Morrison. No Mike on the show today. He'll be back tomorrow, though. And we're counting down the days till Christmas here, end of the semester wrapping up for us, Matt. I'm officially done now. You've been done this entire week. Feels good, man. Get that weight off the shoulders,
It
right?
does. It does. You know
Christmas
what's the
vacation.
greatest feeling is? You wake up in the morning. You don't have to set an alarm anymore. You just wake up on your own. I woke up at 9:30.
And you can make breakfast, right? You can go make breakfast, have a meal, have a cup of tea or coffee.
Take your time.
It's so much more relaxing in the morning.
It's so awesome. You're not in a rush. Because I love my mornings. And
well, Matt, you also live farther away from campus, too, so you got to wake up like an hour earlier than everyone else would normally for these kind of classes. But, man, semester over, it feels good. You know what else feels good? Watching some high school basketball, Matt.
Yeah.
I know. We both had some pretty good games going on last night. I think mine might have topped yours out a little bit. This one was pretty epic. I obviously had Brookfield and Liberty. Matt, why don't you talk about yours first while I pull up my stats from this game?
I'm pulling up mine here. Badger Braves, they started out great, and they just kind of, I want to say they ran out of steam a little bit against this Fairport Harding Skippers team. This Skippers team, oh my goodness, they can shoot the ball, they can rebound, and Badger had some good looks at some 3-pointers and a couple of little 15-footers. Just they weren't falling. The only one really that made in the end that really made a huge difference for Badger was Katie Grexa and Addison Thompson. Grexa and Thompson were just out of breath at the end. Grexa was stealing every ball that came in her area. I mean, like, 1 second she's over here and the ball's on this side, and one pass, boom, she's there and she's battling for it. And it was just a lot of that the whole game. And I think she just ran out of steam. She was putting up shots that just weren't falling at the end, and there were some fouls that should have been called but weren't. And I think it just let this Harding team, this Fairport Harding team, just jump in front of them, and they ended up taking this one. They won 58-45. So I mean, at halftime it was pretty close, and then after that, they just ran out of steam. Badger would cement a huge comeback, like 8-0 run to get them within 5, and then boom, a couple shots would just put the dagger in them, and they did that twice, and it's just completely exhausting.
But, Matt, over on my side, Brookfield Leopards came in undefeated 5-0. Brookfield was 4-1 coming into that game after their winning against Crestview in Cleveland this past Saturday. This one lived up to the hype. Remember yesterday on the show we were saying this was a collision course. These two teams have been pretty much waiting to meet each other all season long, and that's exactly what we had. It was an absolute warfare on the court. This game started out, it looked like Brookfield was on a tear, man. Liberty couldn't get anything going. Turnovers were a huge factor in the early stages. Liberty couldn't find any momentum, and Brookfield, after that first quarter, they were up 16-13. That was a real surprise to see, because this Liberty team, out of the gates, they've been very hot this season, and I did not see that again from them this time out. And then the second quarter started up, and that's when the Leopards showed out once again. Down by 4 down by 3 at the end of that first quarter. They stormed back, outscored Brookfield 18-11 in the second quarter. They take a 4-point lead into halftime, and then third quarter opens up. Leopards off to the races immediately, outscored 15-7 over Brookfield. They're at 46-34 going into that final quarter, and it just felt like, oh, here they go again. They're going to run away with this. Then the defense for Brookfield became locked down. Their offense was amazing. Kaylee Wellman was going crazy. Hook was off the charts. Reardon was hitting all of her shots. I mean, their big three was really coming together at the end of this ball game, and they were leading the charge back into it. And if it wasn't for some poor free throw shooting down the stretch by Hook and Reardon, Brookfield probably could have won this game, but it came down to the stretch. Brookfield outscored the Leopards 20-10 in the fourth quarter, but the Leopards come away with a 2-point win in this contest. And I mean, it came down to the very end of it. You had Aaliyah Foster tied ball game 54-54, running down the floor with, I think it was like 15 seconds left, gets underneath the defense and just lays up a beautiful shot off the backboard. It goes in, draws the and one foul with like 6.3 seconds left on the clock. She misses the and one. Sophie Hook grabs the rebound, but she doesn't put up a shot in time. And the shot that she did end up putting up after the buzzer fell about at the free throw line, so the shot wouldn't have even been close. But it was absolutely epic. And this fourth quarter felt like the storm back from LeBron James's Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. It was just everything was going against them really in the last half hour of the game. And then that fourth quarter comes in and boom, Brookfield, they're coming. They're ready to go. It was so close. And they came up just short. I mean, Kaylee Wellman finished with 13 points. Sophie Hook finished with a team high 19 points. Reardon getting back in her scoring column. She finishes up with 12 points in this game. But it was on the other side. Aaliyah Foster is turning into one of the biggest talents we have in the Valley at just a sophomore. Keep in mind, she's on, I believe, her third or fourth straight 20-plus point game. Coming off a 26-point outing last time, she gets 23 points tonight and the game-winning field goal as well. So she was on the money. Sienna Smith got back in the scoring department. She had 3 in her last game. She finished with 10 here. Then Demi Watson, who fouled out of the game actually in the third quarter due to some pretty bogus free foul calls as well. About 2 of the calls called on her were legitimate. The other ones, not so much. There was definitely some question marks with those referees, but she still got 11 points. And I think that was also a big reason why it allowed Brookfield to come back in that fourth quarter is this Liberty team was playing without one of their best talents and defensive talents out there on the floor as well in Demi Watson. But this game lived up to the hype. It had everything you could have asked for. I mean, controversy, big plays, big shots, big runs, speed, athleticism, fantastic moments. I mean, this game had everything you could ask for coming out of a girls basketball game or just any basketball game, really. I mean, this was all the hype we had been waiting for all season between these two squads, and Liberty pulls out the win. They're 6-0. They finally, for the first time this season, did not hit 60 points in a game. So if that's anything to take away, this is the best anyone has played them so far. I'm interested to see how they continue going down the season. Liberty, we're obviously number 2 on our power rankings this week on YSN. Moving forward, I think this win boisters that. They might jump to number 1 after it if they can continue to roll along the rest of the week here and moving on into the holiday tournaments and stuff coming up. This squad has pretty much everything you could ask for. One big question mark, though, they've only faced 2 teams with a winning record. So 2 of those 6 wins have come against winning record teams. The other 4 wins have come against teams that until last night only had 1 win, were 1-win squads, most of them 1-4 or 1-3. So I'm interested to see how those teams span out, and that'll change the resume of Liberty so far in the season. But to me, this team is still the perfect culmination. And at the very end of it, despite the young team, they had the maturity to pull this thing together and pull off a close win in the end. And I think that was the most important part. And I was talking to Coach Deidre Watson in this before the game. She was just telling me that it was the maturity of these girls that she hasn't seen from them in quite some time that has really allowed them to go on this huge streak to start out the season. So, I mean, all credit to those girls. It's been an honor calling this group so far. They are extremely talented, and I can't wait to see more of them. But Matt, going in here too tonight, what game do you got going on?
I got the Brookfield boys taking on the Campbell Memorial Red Devils, and this Campbell team is a force to be reckoned with. I called them a little bit ago against Badger, and Badger really put everything to them. There's this one kid, the name is Scavos Kiros. This kid is unbelievable. This was I think it was a 2-point game going into halftime against Badger, and that is because he didn't play this first half. He got 3 quick fouls that I somehow missed. I don't know how. I didn't even see this kid starting. He came out in the second half, boom, passing, shooting. He showed speed. This kid is insane. Brookfield's going to have to show something to stop this kid tonight. Brookfield, I've heard good things about our boy Isaiah Jones, putting it on the gridiron as well as on the basketball court. So we'll see if he gets the necessary playing time to get Brookfield back, back up against, this good Memorial team. Brookfield's 2-1, Memorial's 4-1. The big storyline for Memorial is that they had 3 guys. They were all friends. They all transferred out. One went out to Akron. I think it was near your area. One went to Liberty, and I forget where the other one went, but they all came back this year and all decided to go back to Campbell to finish it out with each other. And they've been insane. They have been insane. It made this team immediately a contender. And there's somebody to keep an eye on. But hopefully
that they are, Matt. They've had a strong start to the season, and everyone around the Valley has been talking about this Memorial team. You and I, saw a bit of Memorial basketball last year, and when we had heard coming around this time that this was a team to be reckoned with, we both looked at each other and went, "Really,
like,
Campbell?
What?
Okay, I mean,
Campbell?
Sure. If you're going to tell us Campbell's the team to look at, go ahead." We didn't believe it at first, and they are coming off a loss, so Brookfield will have that going for them as well. But this is a very high-scoring team. As much as I talk about Liberty scoring 70-plus a game, this is a team that has hit 80 points in 3 out of their 5 games already on the season, including against your Badger Braves. So this is a hot team. I mean, they decimated Hubbard 81-45. They blew out Valley Christian 66-45, and they dominated Jacksonville in 80-32. So this is a monster unit they have put together this season. And Matt, you should be in for an absolute contest going on there.
Hopefully we see some flying dunks or something here. I know Jones has some hops on him too. And we got pretty much the whole football team on this basketball team. So get to see some Pulowski action as well. That would be exciting to see what they can do. But it should be a good one. And then you got Brookfield boys this Friday.
Yeah, I got Brookfield and Liberty boys basketball this Friday. That should be a pretty fun matchup. But over to what I got here tonight, I have the Liberty boys basketball team against the Crestview boys. Both teams 1-2, kind of struggled to start out this season, but some tough matchups so far for Liberty. I mean, they've had to take on both Harding and Archbishop Hoban. Hoban's a team that is nearly always in the Final Four or Sweet 16s, Elite Eights of the tournament. This is coming out of my area, more Little East Akron. This is a team that is normally one of the best in the area every single year. Hoban is
actually, now that you said that name, I think that's the school that kid from Campbell transferred from. I think that's where he was at.
Yeah, Archbishop Hoban is one of the greatest, schools in football and basketball year in, year out. So, that was a hard one to go up in their last game. They lose that on the 3 straight road games to start the season as well. You can't ask for really much more than a 1-2 start to the season when your first 3 all come on the road, especially in tough environments. I mean, their first game, they opened with an 8-point loss against Warren G. Harding in Harding. That's going to be a fierce environment. Then they go into McDonald. They win by 4 points. It was a low-scoring affair, and they haven't scored a lot of points this season. They've gone over the 42-point mark just once, and that was in that game against Harding. The last 2 games, they've scored 42 in each. So that's going to be something to look out for coming into this ball game. Statistically, they're being led by Davis, their senior. He's one of their returners from last year. This is a squad that is starting about 5 different seniors on this team, and they have 2 juniors. It's not a huge roster. This is a team that doesn't exactly have a deep bench. They have their guys, and that's who they're going to have to roll with. Right now, Davis is the one leading them with 16.7 points per game and averaging a double-double as well with 10.7 rebounds. And they're going to have to rely on some other people to score in this game, and it's going to come from Turner. And, well, actually, Turner's a surprise this season. He's a junior on the squad, Kalen Turner. He's averaging 9 points per game right now, second leading scorer on the team. He was not one of the guys you expected to make that jump. You thought it was going to be either Chambers or Venters. Chambers is averaging 8 points per game, Venters 5.7, but there's a lot of scoring talent on this team. It's just a matter of whether or not they can put it together as a total team here tonight. And I think this is one of those good matchups you look at and say, hey, this is a game that is winnable. We feel pretty even with this Crestview squad. We've both struggled to start the season, so I'm interested to see how this one turns out. And both teams coming off of blowouts in their last ones. And both teams started with a loss. Second game a win, third game a loss. So both these teams pretty much have had the exact same season coming in throughout. Teams that guys look out for this Crestview squad: Cusick, Miller, and Yerke. Those guys each averaging double figures so far in the season. They are averaging about 6 points more per game than Liberty, but I got a feeling tonight it'll be a defensive battle. Whichever team plays stronger that way and can get a few extra points going their way will be the one that comes out with it.
Seems interesting here. We got some games here
We got
tonight
some,
on
I think,
YSN
question
Live.
mark games. I think more is like, what
Yeah.
are we getting out of these teams? We're still early enough where you don't really know what a team's going to be. I feel like girls basketball, they got that extra week going ahead of boys, and you kind of have a feel of what some of your teams are, especially now after we've had a lot more of the in-conference games and stuff in this last week. But this definitely felt like, some matchups here recently that can really become more important for girls basketball. I think boys, we're still working that out of conference, so you don't necessarily know what you're going to get once they start that in-conference play. I think that's a big part of what we're seeing so far. But let's go ahead and move into what happened last night. Monday Night Football, LA Rams stunned the Arizona Cardinals 30-23 despite a 10-point fourth quarter comeback from the Cardinals that comes up just short. The Hail Murray did not connect. Aaron Donald comes in to put a stopper on that one. And frankly, man, it's hard to blame Kyler Murray for his performance in this one. 32 of 49, 383 yards, 2 interceptions. That hurts. He couldn't find the end zone at all. But he was also 61 yards on the ground, 8.7 yards per carry. Still couldn't find the end zone there. But you're talking about one player that's getting nearly 460 yards in this game alone out of his team's 447. So the fact that he had this many and his total amount of yards technically were higher than what the entire team earned in this game, but that does get taken aback because the interceptions count as negative yards, and so do sacks, I believe. So his total yards was a phenomenal effort, and they just couldn't run the football. James Conner got 13 carries for 31 yards. They used him in short ground opportunities. He got 2 touchdowns off of that in the red zone, and I mean, they got some great contributions from Connor in the pass department, kind of what he used to do in Pittsburgh a lot, give him the rock outside and see what he can do. I mean, he was averaging 10.4 yards per reception, 94 yards for him. A.J. Green had 102 yards receiving. Christian Kirk had 86. Hopkins had 54. Zach Ertz had 42. I mean, this team really played near perfect. They just couldn't find the end zone very often. That was their Achilles heel in this one. And when you're asking 9 points from the kicker in a close game like this, you're not going to be able to pull one out. And on the other side, Stafford was Stafford. I mean, he had a near perfect game, 23 of 30, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns. What more can you ask for, especially when they got Sony Michel on the ground, who's now stepped up in the last few games, averaging 4 yards per carry, 79 yards. Cooper Kupp had 123 yards receiving with a touchdown. OBJ had 77 yards and a touchdown. Van Jefferson had 58 yards and a touchdown. And not to mention, Aaron Donald was feasting defensively with 3 sacks in this one. And Matt Gay, the kicker, had 12 points as well. So they were putting things together in a mighty fine way. They had an epic performance.
Yeah, it sounds like it here. The Rams, I said this yesterday, if the Cardinals would win this game, it really puts them as a contender. But the Rams pulled this one out. Now, what's that say for them? Everybody's saying, Green Bay is the number 1. Which, I mean, I
still think they are, but I mean, I think this definitely puts the Rams back in that spot where you can start looking at them to finish out the season and go, hey, this might be the Rams to take, but keep in mind the Cardinals may not be such a bad thing if they are a wild card team, especially if they fall down a little bit here to finish off the season, because this team is 7-0 on the road right now. So I almost, if I'm Arizona, I might not want to play at home for the rest of this season. So depending on how this thing rolls out, they're going to have, pardon me as I look up the schedule here for the Cardinals, they will have 2 remaining home games, 2 remaining home games, 2 remaining away games. They host the Colts on Christmas Day, and they will host the Seahawks on January 9th. 2 road games left, the Lions and the Cowboys. So to me, Cardinals have pretty much sealed their spot. I mean, they're 10-win team. They're still in first place of the NFC West. This would have given them a spot to clinch an official spot in the playoffs. But at the moment, even if they don't get the 1 seed, like they still could be in the running, which they still are in the running. They have the same record as the other 2 top teams in the NFC, the Packers and the Buccaneers. So to me, this is a great spot for them to be in. No need to panic right now for the Cardinals. This was a must-win game for the Rams. They couldn't really afford to slip up that much, but right now, the Rams are the second best team outside, or the first best team outside of a divisional lead that we see in the football right now, because the rest of the 2 seeds around are 6-win teams. They're the only one that sits at 9 wins. So I think they got some bright things to look out for right now.
Yeah, yes,
they pretty much solidified their wild card spot, basically. If they win one more game, I think they solidify a playoff berth, and they have the Seahawks at home next week. And then they'll head up to Minnesota before really their final 2 weeks. I think are the most difficult ones. They will play in Baltimore, then host the 49ers.
Yeah. And I noticed one thing. Van Jefferson, his dad is a wide receivers coach for the Cardinals, and Jefferson caught a pretty big touchdown pass that really put him in a good spot in the lead. That was funny. His dad's like, "Oh no, what are you doing?" He was all mad. I'm like, "That's your kid.
Right.
Embrace it, But
that was one of those moments you're just so conflicted because you're like, I can't root for him. He scored against me, darn it.
But I think Odell Beckham really kind of cemented himself into this game. 1 touchdown, 77 yards on 6 receptions. And, that really let people know, like, hey, Odell Beckham is here.
He fits the system, and that's the thing we didn't have in Cleveland. And there was tweets afterwards. I think it was Van Jefferson put out tweets after the game throwing shade at Cleveland. He said, I told y'all Odell wasn't the problem. And I don't remember if it was Jefferson or somebody else. And he was just like, I told y'all Beckham wasn't the problem after this game. And to me, I was just like, there were people saying Beckham was the problem. Personally, I never thought Beckham was the problem. I just said it wasn't a system fit. And I think this showed perfectly it wasn't the right system for OBJ to be in. The Brown system really looks at a 1 wide receiver setup with 3 tight ends, and that's what Cleveland runs. And they might have to change something up this week with half the offense out on the COVID reserve list now, and they're playing on Saturday instead of Sunday. So problems for Cleveland this week as they're looking to potentially make a playoff run now, second in the AFC North. Yeah. Saturday game here since college football regular season technically over, but bowl weekend starts this Saturday. So question mark that NFL messing up with the big bowl Saturday, the opening bowl Saturday too. But that is what it is. But back to this game, he had a great game. He had a couple great games in Cleveland too. To me, having one great game isn't showing yourself to not be the problem, because if you're making all this noise after one game, shut up. Do it again, and then do it again, then do it again, and then you have a case. If you can put together a strong end of the season and then a playoff run, and he puts up good numbers along it, getting multiple receptions a game, getting up there near the 100-yard mark, getting touchdowns, and can actually look like an actual part of this offense instead of someone that just happened to be open against a subpar defense that night in the Cardinals, then sure, then you have a case to say that you weren't the problem. But if it's just one fluke game out here, can we really say that this was a statement for Odell? Because, if we're going one game, Mike White's the greatest quarterback in the history of the NFL. And clearly he did a second game and he wasn't that good afterwards. So there's a lot of cases of one-hit wonders. Nick Foles, Super Bowl, MVP, dominated that game, and where is he now? He's a backup.
Yeah.
He's a backup. What, for the Bears?
He's actually like a third string,
right. He's third string quarterback somewhere. So
behind Dalton.
Right. Anyone can have one great game in the NFL, and that's been proven time and time again. Look over the last 10 years in this guy's career. What the hell has he done since he's left New York? Nothing. He hasn't done anything since that big catch in New York. That's the only highlight on his resume. He has a highlight.
Yeah. He's
been hyped. Yeah, he's a fantastic route runner. He's got speed, and he's got some pretty darn good hands. But you know what? He doesn't get open that often, and when he does, it's very late in plays, and the only reason Stafford can get it to him is because the Rams have a pretty darn good offensive line. And that's the facts there. You're seeing Sony Michel get near 100 yards per game. That's not happening in most places. That right there is showing that Matt Stafford and Michelle have a pretty darn good offensive line in Los Angeles that are allowing them to put up this amount of yards. Yeah, but Cleveland has their own issues, and that's a different part of it. They have problems at the right tackle position, and that's where Baker was getting rushed a lot of times. And when you're looking left side of the field where Odell was most of the time lining up, he was to the left of Baker. Baker's having to look that way with pressure coming this way. Baker likes to look at the pressure and throw over top of it. So when pressure's coming in from the right side and he's got to make a split that second decision, he's not going to turn his entire body and look all the way downfield. At the same time, he's got Aaron Donald trying to kill him, from his right side. And he's going to put it off to the right, or he's going to take down the hit. It just wasn't the right system or the right people around Odell to put him successful in the Brown system. They have that in Los Angeles. They have some offensive linemen that can play consistently. You never saw that in Cleveland. They didn't have consistent line play. They had good linemen. I'll give you that. They had some pretty darn good linemen, and I don't want to change up the linemen, because they've actually put together a pretty solid squad. But it wasn't the right fit for Odell. It's a system designed for quick passes and runs, and that's not what Odell fits in. He fits in West Coast offense. You know where he's playing right now, and he looked good in that one game? West Coast offense.
There you saying it right there. I was just about to say, Odell doesn't – when you say Odell, you're like, Cleveland? No, you think L.A. immediately. When you say Odell Beckham, you think teams like L.A. or even like tropical teams, Florida or L.A., okay? You don't think Cleveland. You don't think cold.
No.
You don't.
No, and I mean, I think he never fit. I mean, the chemistry was just never there. I mean, even guys when he left were like, he was kind of a loner in the locker room. He never really fit here. He didn't fit the vibe that Cleveland puts
the only
out.
friend he had was Jarvis.
And I think the thing with that, Jarvis created the chemistry of this locker room. Cleveland was nothing until Jarvis came along, and everyone wants to give the credit to Odell or Baker or Chubb or Garrett or even Stefanski. This rebuild was put solely in place by Jarvis Landry. We gave him his friend. It didn't work out, and there's no love lost there. Jarvis Landry has stayed 100% committed to the Browns, and throughout all of the controversies over these last few years, no question mark has ever been posed against Jarvis Landry, and I think that's what you get out of a good wide receiver. Jarvis is a Cleveland man, straight up, and that's what Cleveland has to get. That's what northern teams have to get. Can you see Aaron Rodgers playing down south? No. You know what? Aaron Rodgers is a Minnesota, Wisconsin-style quarterback. Put him in the cold, put him in the snow, let him sling it. You know, that's his kind of style. You know, he's hard-nosed, gritty, rough. Look at the beard. He's scruffy. You don't play scruffy in Los Angeles, you know? You look at guys like Baker, even Tom Brady, when he was in the early years, felt like he was a New England guy. As it got older, and you can kind of tell, like, no, that's a Hollywood boy right there. That's Hollywood Brady, and especially since he's made his transition down to Tampa, he's a Hollywood boy. That's 100% for sure. You see certain people in certain places, and they fit there, and that's what Odell does in Los Angeles. He's not a cold weather type of guy. He's, let me play in the sunshine, let me get that natural light coming down, and that's when I'll play my best. You just don't get that in Cleveland, especially with the awful weather conditions sometimes that you have to play with. I mean, especially Browns stadium design, it's designed to swirl around that wind and make it hard to throw and kick the football. When that happens, it promotes rushing football, and that's not a system that fits Odell, and that was the problem.
Nope.
Well, Matt, let's move along.
We made this about Odell, haven't we? We killed 15 minutes.
Isn't it always about Odell, though? Isn't that what he wants?
Yeah.
He wants the headlines. This is what he wants, people yelling about it. Well, let's get into our college basketball top 10 here, Matt.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, now we're out of that. Going in to college basketball, we've had some pretty crazy shakeups here and a little bit of some arguments behind the scenes of who we believe should be in this top 10 and who shouldn't be.
That's what it's all about.
Right. I mean, you're trying to find the 10 best teams in college basketball. And still early on in the season, it is hard to do. So if we miss out on your team, apologies, but it is hard to put together a list that 3 people can agree on. And, this is all getting voted on separately as well. So we don't really have an input on what everybody else says or even the final. We give our best 10. And if that comes out as the same as your best 10, congratulations. But, it's hard to put together this entire list and say this is definitive, the 10 best teams. And I think we've seen that throughout the year, that our 10 best teams may not be the 10 best teams the next week. This is pretty much as it stands right now, as they have played, in our opinion, 10 best teams.
And we try not to go with the official rankings as well.
Yeah, we don't want to be the AP. That's not our goal here on the show.
We don't want to be exactly the same. We're going to change it up.
Yeah,
we don't agree with their polls anyways.
Right. So with that being said, let's get into our number 10 team on the list. Matt, they hit your and my spot at 9. Mike put them in at 10. The USC Trojans off to a fantastic start to the season. Yeah, they're sweet, man. I don't know how else you can say it. They're 10-0 right now. It's an undefeated unit. To me, undefeated undoubtedly should be thrown up near or at the top 10. I was even looking potentially putting the San Francisco Dons on the outside of this list. I have them sitting as a note for next week. Hey, I want to check back into what this squad has done. And to me, USC, they don't necessarily have huge wins on the season. They don't have a top 25 win. That's fine by me because you know what? They're undefeated and they're playing consistent basketball. I mean, they're averaging about 75 points per game. They're actually averaging 77, which is tied for 82nd in the league. That's fine. The rebounding's been pretty good. I need some better defense out of them if they continue to move along. But, they just seemingly have all the answers every time.
And you know who I like on this team, man? His brother.
Isaiah Mobley.
Oh, yeah. His brother's putting in for Cleveland, as he's doing here for USC. You talked about rebounds. He leads the team in rebounds.
9.8 point game. Yeah, and he's averaging 14.7 points. I think, it might be a good pickup for whatever else. I mean, they've seen what his brother Evan can do, and these two play very similar.
Forward.
Matt, a lot of times, too, when you talk about the younger brothers, look around the NFL, younger brothers, and even college basketball, younger brothers tend to play better. Steph and Seth. There's a lot of examples of brothers duos in the league, and the younger one ends up turning out better. The Watts, the Bosas in the NFL. So
the younger brothers always.
It's always the younger brothers. So you got to watch out for Mobley. Huh?
Evan Mobley is pretty sweet.
Oh, we love Mobley. You just got his jersey too. So yeah, I mean Cleveland loves Mobley, and we hope he loves us back. But Isaiah, I mean, he could be on some star trajectory, and I think that'll actually what Evan has done this year, I think will help bolster his draft position when he decides to commit.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this team, they played solid basketball all season. I think that's the big thing as well. You want to see that consistency out of a team, and that's just not something you get every time you look at some even top teams in the league. They can be very up and down, and that's one of the things you just haven't seen out of them is playing up and down. They have been pretty darn consistent, and you look at Mobley right now, he sits 20th in the nation in rebounding in college basketball. So they've got some pretty good stars on this team. Well, with that being said, let's move to a team that I believe is even higher than our rankings may say. I had them at number 4. You guys did not. I've got Iowa State. They fall in at number 9. Yep. You had them at 10. Mike somehow didn't have them ranked. I've loved what this team has done so far on this season. What's that? Yeah.
But yeah. We can give him the business when he's not on here. He's not here to argue us back. Mike put Villanova in, and they're a 3-loss team.
Right. And, here's my thing with Iowa State. When we talk about who have you beaten in the case of Villanova can't say much in over a month. Their last big win came against number 18 Tennessee on November 20th. Before that, their win was on November 13th against UCLA. And yeah, those are two pretty darn good wins. But when you've lost 3 more times to other ranked teams, you need to be punished for it. That's why I haven't even had them in the entire season. So to me, Nova hasn't done anything. Iowa State, on the other hand, they had a double-digit win against number 25 Xavier. They had a near 20-point win against number 9 Memphis. They beat Creighton. They beat Iowa, and they have been dominating. And yeah, they had a weird game this last one against Jacksonville State, a 47-37 question mark victory. But to me, they've beaten everyone you can put in front of them. Isaiah Brockington is averaging 16.6 points per game. He is going off, and this team is, averaging 72 points per game. They don't have anything that's going to wow you. They don't have a super wow factor, but they have exactly what we ask for. Consistency in playing like they deserve to be there. Be a team and see how that works out for you. And we're going to find out what we have in this next month or so, not to finish out the year, but January is when this season gets rough, baby. They open up the year against number 1 Baylor. They then go in to face number 25 Texas Tech. Then they have Oklahoma. Then they have Kansas. Then they have Texas. And then they have Texas Tech again. And that's not even finishing the month where they'll go up against TCU, Oklahoma State, and Missouri to finish out January alone. They have a loaded schedule ahead of them. If they run the table, to me, in the next few weeks, this team could be number 1 in the nation if they beat Baylor.
They could be. Iowa State is on the move. They're Cyclones.
To me, if they beat Baylor coming here in the next month or so, I think it's very hard to say they're not the number 1 team. I mean, if they're the only ones that can beat Baylor, then they would have to also beat Texas Tech and Oklahoma within the next week after that. With wins over Memphis, Xavier, and Creighton already on the season, to me, they have the entire resume to put together the showing for the number 1 team, especially when if you list the College Basketball Power Index by strength of resume rankings right now, they sit at number 2 in the nation, and they are undefeated. With that, they've had the second hardest schedule, and they've won all of them. To me, that's pretty darn good start. Don't know how you can argue with that.
Pretty darn good here.
Pretty darn good.
Let's move on here.
All right. Well, number 8 on our list. You had them at 8. I had them at 7. Mike also had them at 8. Or pardon me, Matt. You did have them at 7 as well. We agreed on a lot of these throughout the week.
Oh, yeah.
Kansas, the Jayhawks, they slip up a little bit. They haven't had a fantastic start to the season. They could have done better rolling out.
Better than Villanova, though.
You're right. I mean, they're better than Villanova, and they've done some okay things, just the one loss. So you can't punish them too much, and you know what you're getting out of them. And I think that's the important part. And keep in mind, the 1-point loss, it was a 1-point loss, is their only loss on the season. So with that being said, I don't think you can necessarily throw out everything they've done so far in the season because they had a 1-point loss. So with that being said, I mean, you just have to give them the benefit of the doubt. I feel like is really what we're going here with that is that they're getting the benefit of the doubt. They're right now 4th in the BPI rankings, 17th in strength of resume. And the fact that they have come out of that with one loss, we're not holding that against them. I'm perfectly fine keeping them here in the top 10 until they give us reason not to.
Yeah, me too. And, they're a team that made some mistakes, but they're learning from that. And, I mean, I think we said 3 times already that the season is still early.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the only ninth or 10th game through already?
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 9 and 10s all the way through pretty much. So,
all right.
Well, with that being said, the next team on our list, the Crimson Tide, they fall in at number 7. I think a little bit overrated still. I have them at 10.
A little bit.
I didn't move them. I mean, I put them into my top 25 or in my top 10, pardon me. But I don't like the win over Houston. There was some controversy coming out of it, but they do fit my criteria of being a top 10 team in which they are a top 10 in scoring right now in the league. They beat Gonzaga. They beat a ranked Houston. The Iona loss still questionable, but what they've done so far in the season was enough for me to put them in here. I don't want to just throw them up all the way into that top 7 area where both you and Mike have them. Mike had them at 6. You had them at 5. I don't think they're there quite yet. But I think where I put them at 10 evens them out at this 7 spot. I'm okay with that because I think they've done stuff outside of those big games. It's just that Houston game to me probably should have put them at a 2-loss moment because there was a serious goaltending call missed on the final shot, which it wasn't reviewed. And to me, it was one of those moments in the game that really needed to be looked at and double confirmed, double checked, because it has huge implications on what the rest of the season could turn out, especially when you have Houston, who isn't exactly going to get the same respect as an SEC Alabama team.
Yeah, and looking at this Bama schedule, I mean, they got a tough Memphis team. Memphis will fight with you. We saw that when they played. Who they play? They had a pretty tough matchup. I think they lost though. They're 5-4 now. Where is it? We previewed it.
Which game?
It was the Murray State game. They lost it by 2. That was a good game. And they'll bring that fight into Alabama, and they'll fight with them. So Alabama, they can't go off a goaltending call that didn't get called to win the game. They have to score some buckets and then.
All right, man. Moving on here. We are running low on time. We got some other stuff to get down to. So number 6 on our list, the Arizona Wildcats. I mean, perfect start to the season. Number 1 in strength of resume right now. You got to give credit. Big win over Illinois that we were talking about. They needed that win. And they also have a win over number 4 Michigan by nearly 20 points. They were the start of the downfall for Michigan. They got Benedict Mathurin averaging 18.4 points per game on the season so far. That is just outside the top 10. They're outside the top 5, in offensive leaders. And then if you look at this team statistically, still number 1 in the nation in points per game. To me, they've done everything right. I had them at 6. Mike had them at 7. And Matt, you had this team down at 8. They're working their way up, no problem.
They are. Oh, they are.
And to me, Matt, they're better than this next team we have on the list. Gonzaga, they're at 5. You put Gonzaga down at 6. Mike had them at 4. I dropped them all the way down to 8 after this one. I had them at 5 last week. I don't know exactly how Gonzaga stayed at 4th in Mike's rankings here, considering, they lost. But, that's up to Mike, and Mike's the only one that knows and could answer that question. But, I mean, following their last 4 games, they've gone 2-4, and their only 2 wins are against, non-power 10 opponents, so teams that would be considered in the FCS or below in football. But
the Merrimack Warriors.
Yeah,
that's the last team they played.
Right, and the Tarleton Texans, who are 1-6, and they won by 9 points in that game. To me, Gonzaga has pretty much been the definition of all the hype in the world and no one else showing out.
And it's showing.
They are overrated, and you have Chet Holmgren, who is averaging 3.9 blocks per game, which is third in the nation behind Jamarian Sharp from Western Kentucky. And then how about this one? A guy that should be jumping up draft charts, Obinna and Okili Killen from Marshall, averaging 5 blocks per game on the season so far. So NBA recruiters, start looking out for him out of Marshall. Fantastic numbers putting up. So now on the list here, number 4, UCLA, the Bruins getting the spot. I had them at 4. You guys both had them at, or pardon me, I had them at 2. You guys had them at 4 and 5. Mike at 5, you at 4, Matt. To me, they've done everything right this season. I don't want to punish teams too much for one loss. It's when you get past that one loss that I start to question it. But I mean, you just have to look at what they've done. They got the win over Marquette. To me, that was enough to bolster that resume and kind of delete that loss to Gonzaga. They still hold wins over Villanova, however good or bad they may be. I still believe they are a top 25 team, just not a top 10 team. So with that being said, I mean, they've done a lot this season. Juzang at 16.6 points per game. They've been doing things pretty much about as well as you could ask so far in the season. That Gonzaga game, seemingly a fluke. I mean, I think if you played them again, it's a lot closer. Gonzaga just had the matchups and had their number that night.
Yeah, I said that Gonzaga game, like, man, how good is UCLA now? And obviously it's looking to be a fluke because they're winning all their games and Zaga's starting to lose all of them.
Right.
So,
well, now down number 3 on our list, the Duke Blue Devils. They finished second in the AP this week, but to me, I still have them at 3. I had UCLA at 2. I thought they were better. And for those of you wondering, I dropped Purdue all the way down to 5 in my list, despite you and Mike both keeping them at 2. To me, that loss hurt, and I wanted to punish them because, I mean, it was an upset, and I think you have to give a little bit of punishment. They lost to a 5-4 Rutgers team, and I said, once Big Ten season starts, look for those games, and that's exactly what happened. They rebound with a good win against NC State, so I'm not taking them out completely. I still think they're a top 5 team. Hell, I consider them one of the best teams in college basketball, and I mean, they've had some huge wins on the season, but that loss does hurt, and I want that to reflect. But with Duke on the other side of that, I mean, they've won their games. Their one loss is to Ohio State, who has jumped all the way up in the rankings. I think 15? They're at 18th or 16th, 15th, somewhere in this week. So to 15. Me, 15. I mean, Ohio State was a good loss, and I can excuse that. And to me, Duke has the better loss if you're going to compare there, and I think they might even have a better win. So I want to give them the credit where credit is due. I gave them 3rd, and they were actually pretty much, besides Baylor, the only team that was unanimous at 3rd in our list here across the week. So that being said, Purdue does come in at number 2. You and Mike both had them at that spot. I punish them for the loss. I don't really feel like it's necessarily one they need to be superly punished for, but it was a bad loss, and I want to give Rutgers the credit for beating them. So they are still 4th in the nation in points per game. I mean, they have a fantastic resume, 7th in strength of resume, and I mean, they've done everything right. With that being said, number 1 on our list is Baylor. Matt, I have to step aside real quick. Why don't you talk about Baylor here for a minute?
All right. So Baylor is our number 1. Baylor 9-0 so far this year. They started off near the bottom of that top 10 to start off the season. I thought it was stupid for them to be put down there. They're the defending champs, and they put them like near the top 10, like near the 10 spot. They have worked their way back up here and just said, "Hey, we're the defending champs. We are number 1, and they deserve this spot." They torched Villanova. I mean, they won 57-36. So that's how good this Villanova team is, and they still rank them in their top 10. That's absurd. But looking on here, they're going to have some tough games. Oregon won't be a slouch to get over, and they have Iowa State coming up. They have a good Oklahoma team coming up as well, and they're first in the Big 12. This Baylor team looks sweet, everybody. I like this LJ Cryer. He's making everybody cry. 14.6 points per game, and there's this guy. I won't even make an attempt to say his name. Maybe we'll make Alek make an attempt at his name when he comes back on here. But this guy, 8.3 rebounds. Man, what a name that is. He's doing pretty good, though. This Baylor team, they are a complete team here. They're looking great. Alek, Here's a pop question here. How do you pronounce this guy's name for the Baylor Bears?
Give me a number.
Know what? Huh?
Give me a number.
Man.
Oh, Jonathan Chwamwa Shachua.
All right, that's better than that one goes.
Yeah, I mean, Tashama Chachua. Shachua.
What is it?
I mean, if I had to guess, it's Jonathan Shama Shachua.
Shama Chachua?
I mean, yeah, I mean, considering he's from Cameroon, which I know, I want to say at least is, I have no idea where Cameroon is. I'm not going to lie.
It's okay.
Okay, it's Central Africa. I wanted to say Africa, but I didn't want to sound wrong. So with that being said, I'm pretty much basing this on Wakanda, how you say T'Challa's name, right? So T'Challa, T'Chamwa Chachula. Chachua is how I'm going to go with that. I'm literally just breaking this down as they say it like T'Challa in Wakanda, which is a fake country in Africa, but they tried to do. I mean, Marvel did their due diligence trying to put that together on trying to be at least somewhat accurate with wordings and phrases and the language. They tried to keep that as close as possible. At least I think they did, from what I remember of the making of those movies. And all of that, but back to Baylor basketball here.
I like this Baylor squad. Another guy I like here, 1.1 blocks per game. I like his name too, Flo Thamba. That is a sweet name. That's a sweet
Flo Thamba. Is that just like that's Mike Tyson trying to say Mo Bamba? Yeah, not trying to be offensive there, but that's just what it made me think of instantly.
Hey, I'm still Mike Tyson.
Oh, geez, Matt, don't go there. But yeah, Baylor's coming off a win. They're number one until the 8th. They won the championship. To me, I felt like if we could redo the season over, I would have put Baylor in at number one to start.
I was just talking about it.
Yeah. They should have been the number one team throughout. We shouldn't have even been messing around with all this other stuff.
They shouldn't have had to work their way back up. They put them at like 8.
You know, I'll admit, Matt, I was wrong when we were going into it.
Wrong too.
Yeah, I got no problem admitting my faults here with this. So, I believe this is one of the best teams coming on. So, with that being said, let's get into our college basketball preview. We're going to rapid fire these, I think. So, starting off for Tuesday here, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns versus Houston. I kind of like this matchup coming in, Matt. What about you?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. But Houston, they're doing pretty good on this year. But you never know what the Raging Cajuns can do. But I got to go Houston here. We'll go quick.
Yeah, coming into this one, I thought there was going to be a chance that Louisiana had it, but after this past weekend, they take another loss. They were 5-3 going into it. I thought with a win, that 6-3 team, they had a shot, but I got Houston coming out of it. They're currently a 23.5 point favorite, so I don't think it's really close anymore. I thought it was going to be a better matchup, and I wanted to see the Raging Cajuns again. So they've been a great team, but I got Houston taking this one as well. And then our next game here on the list, the team that just beat Houston, the Alabama Crimson Tide, taking on Memphis tonight at 9 p.m. Memphis is 5-4, but keep in mind they were top 10 early in the season. Alabama favored by just 3 against this team. Alabama has yet to play a true road game so far, and Memphis 4-1 when playing at home. That being said, I think Shackelford's one of the best prospects we have right now in basketball. He's leading the team in points per game at nearly 20 and rebounds at 6.9. I got to give this one to Alabama. I like Memphis. I like what they got going on, but head coach Penny Hardaway. Memphis actually picked to win this game via the matchup predictor at 53% off the BPI, but I don't think that's going to be that close. I like what Alabama's bringing to the table right now, so I got the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, I'm going to go Alabama as well.
Memphis, and keep in mind, it's also been 4 straight losses for Memphis.
Yeah, that's a huge factor. And they fight their way in these games, but they just can't win them. And with Alabama, I mean, Alabama's pretty good. So,
right. All right, moving on here in the list. So, Matt, we've been even throughout these first two. Next one up, UC Irvine versus USC. This game coming up, I believe, also tonight. As I'm pulling it up, since we're rapid firing here, didn't have a chance to write them all up. Tonight, UC Irvine. Actually, tomorrow night, pardon me. UC right now, they're 5-2, and this just feels like it has one of those chances to be that upset kind of night. They're only 6 points less in the points per game department. Field goal percentage is close. Rebounding is close. Every stat seems close, and Irvine coming off a loss against Fresno, but To me, this is a team that can at least stick around with USC. Maybe not beat them, but it can at least be a battle throughout. And I like to look at some of these games' potential upsets. I mean, you saw it with Purdue and Rutgers. No game is guaranteed, even if a team doesn't look like they should be in a contest exactly. So that being said, I'm still rolling with USC. I like Isaiah Mobley. Obviously got to show some love to the Mobley boys. And, I mean, he's averaging almost 10 points and 10 rebounds per game. And I think this is a good one for UC Irvine to potentially win. I mean, we saw the Anteaters, a few years ago in the March Madness make at least a run, I think, or a big upset in round one somewhere. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know we've talked Anteaters on the show before. Matt, you taking USC as well?
Yeah, I gotta go USC. Mobley is strong. I think they'll run away with this one.
All right, next one up. I think this one a little bit closer than the experts think. The Nichols Colonels at 7-3 against the 8-2 Wisconsin Badgers. Badgers coming off a near 20-point loss to Ohio State. Right now, a 3-game win streak for Nichols. Their last loss came against Utah Valley. They pick up a win last night. They've scored 87 or more in their last 3 games. This is a very hot shooting team, and if anyone's going to pull off the win against Wisconsin, it's Nichols, who is averaging 80 points per game, while Wisconsin down at 68.4 points per game. So I think this is a huge game to come into and a big chance for an upset right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll have to see here. But Wisconsin, I mean, they're tough, but you just mentioned that big game winning shirt for Nichols. But I gotta still go Big Ten. Big Ten, tough conference. I think they may play some close games, just like we saw Purdue versus Rutgers. It's a tough division to play in. There's always going to be close games, but I gotta go Wisconsin here. Pick the upset.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take Nichols in this one. Give me the bell. I was looking at this and I went, Nichols has lost to some nice teams on their schedule right now. I mean, they have a loss to Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State. Those are like the 3 losses. Or pardon me, no, it's just Baylor, TCU, and Utah Valley, and they got taken to overtime against Cal Poly. But I mean, there's something about them. I just got a feeling coming into this one. I'm gonna roll with the gut. It's big for a reason, right? Next up on the list, I'm tired of picking against them. Villanova versus Creighton. I've picked against the Blue Jays way too many times. I'm taking Creighton here.
I'm taking Creighton too. Are you kidding me?
I've picked against them far too many times to be wrong in this one, but that does it for the college basketball section here. Let's move in NHL tonight at 8 p.m. 19-8-1 Minnesota Wild hosting the 19-7-1 Carolina Hurricanes. Matt, thoughts here?
Oh, man, Carolina's just too good. They're just too darn good, man. I know they lose some games. That's going to happen in hockey, but I don't think they're going to lose this one. Carolina's, I mean, they're fast. They got everything you name, anything. Speed. They can shoot. They can play defense. It's insane. It's insane. And yeah, the Minnesota Wild is a tough team to play. They always take it to the distance with you. They're 19-8. Hurricanes are 19-7. It's going to be a close game, but
I got you taking the Hurricanes. Am I right on that pick?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Hurricanes here. Man, they're just
Well, Matt, I'm a stat guy, right? My algorithm hasn't necessarily failed me yet. In the Wild right now, 106 goals for on the season right now. That is first place in the National Hockey League. Hurricanes only 85. They do have better defense. They've only allowed 58. And the scoring differential is +3 in the favor of the Hurricanes. But, man, when you got a team scoring as high as that, I don't care what your defense is. The fact that they've played, 28 games right now, and they've scored 106, that is just impeccable.
And they're 10-2 at home.
They're averaging nearly 4 goals a game in the National Hockey League, which I'm not sure what the record is for that, but I'm going to look it up actually here.
Honestly, they are 10-2 at home as well, but the Hurricanes are 12-4 on the road. Excuse me. But when you're looking that up, there's some players on this Minnesota team. His name's Kirill Kaprizov. That guy is sweet. And then Raya Hartman is sweet too. And then, I mean, Sebastian Aho for Carolina. I mean,
well, Matt, I couldn't find the all-time list, but regular season scoring stats from last year, goals per game, the highest mark was 3.5. This team in Minnesota is averaging almost 3.8. It was the Avalanche last year who set that mark. So, to me, I love that scoring right now from the Wild.
Sweet as well.
Give me Minnesota. I'm taking that one. Our final game here on the Casual Sports Podcast for Tuesday, NBA tomorrow, 7:30, Los Angeles Lakers hosting the Dallas Mavericks. You know, we all like here Dallas on the show, the Mavs. We like Doncic. We like what they got going on. But to me, I almost feel like the Lakers are finding something. You've seen LeBron his last 5 games. He's been getting up there near 30 points per game in pretty much all of them. The King seems to be putting on the crown. He's really going for it right now and trying to prove those haters wrong once again. Because of that, I'm actually going to take the Lakers in this one. I like LA to pull out the win here against Dallas.
Against Dallas? I'm looking up here. Give me a second. I need something.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, you look at this Lakers squad, and they haven't been perfect, and I think that's okay because we're still so early in the year. But I mean, you now look at what they've done. They're just last 10 games, they're 6-4. They seem to have some momentum. The Mavericks are 4-6 in that last 10. And I mean, you look at what they've been doing here the past few nights. I mean, 12-point win over the Magic, 21-point win over the Thunder, 15 over the Celtics, just a 13-point loss to the Grizzlies that hurt, the 4-point loss to the Clippers. But I mean, they dominated the Kings. They're winning the games that they were supposed to win, and then the close ones, they're a little bit back and forth. But I don't know what it is right now. I think the Lakers got the hot hand. That's why I'm taking them.
I'm gonna go Dallas here, 54.8% to win this game. 7-6 at home, which is not really the best record, but the Lakers are 5-6 on the road. So that's something to look at there. I mean, similar records. Mavericks are 14-13, and the Lakers are, 15-13. And, the Mavericks, they've had some tough losses. I mean, they lost to the Hornets, and they lost to the Thunder, too. The Thunder beat them. But, they actually beat those teams. My bad. But they lost to the Pacers, the Nets, and the Grizzlies, and, that's something to look at. But those are tough teams to play. Nets and Grizzlies, they had to play the Grizzlies twice in 3 days or in a week. So if they can play those tough teams and split, I think they can take it to this old Lakers team, which LeBron has been putting up numbers.
Well, that is going to do it here for the Casual Sports Podcast. Once again, I've been Alek. That's Matt Morrison. Come on back tomorrow. We have even more college basketball to get into. Looking at the list, it's looking like we got about 13, 14 games to preview going into tomorrow. We got a big college basketball weekend coming up and an even bigger college football weekend that we're previewing on Thursday's show. To make sure to come back for the rest of the week. Power Hour up next on YSNLive.com. Thanks for tuning in once again. We will see you all tomorrow with the return of Mike Wolfgang.